Welcome to This Explainer. I am Salvio Polido, once known as the Sovereign of the Shattered Stone. Today, I'm taking you through my own personal metamorphosis. You've received the cosmic invitation to dive into the wet parchment of reality with me. Together, we're going to explore this profound evolution of Nine, how I went from being a completely rigid dictator of order to a master of fluid creation. It's a wild ride, and through my journey, we're going to uncover exactly what it takes to adopt and honestly thrive when absolute chaos just completely takes over your world. So here's the core realization. To frame the void, I had to let the void rewrite me, the architect. I finally realized that true control, the kind that actually survives absolute chaos, requires surrendering to the chaotic spill. You simply can't fight the void from the outside. You have to let it fundamentally change you. So let me show you exactly how I experienced this incredible transformation and what it literally meant for the very concept of order. Part 1. The Architecture of Stasis. Let's dive in. Imagine standing at the epicenter of this massive, new horizon of chaos. The frantic, wet parchment of reality finally stopped its chaotic rewriting, settling into this heavy, iridescent stillness. It was like an eerie, pregnant calm right after a cosmic storm. And there I stood. But I was no longer a man trapped in the old architecture of stasis. My past identity, those royal purple and gold robes, totally melted away into the shifting twilight. And what replaced it was, well, a crystalline silhouette, bleeding liquid geometry. My physical being was completely transformed, perfectly matching the fluid, unpredictable nature of my brand new reality. Take the Apollonian gasket, for instance. With its infinitely nesting circles, it used to be just a rigid tool in my hands, something I used to measure and control the old world. But in the midst of this chaos, it actually became my chest cavity. It was literally spinning with the smoky starlight of high time. It's wild to think about, but the ultimate mathematical tool didn't break under the void's pressure. It was internalized. It became the very core of my new existence. It just goes to show that the instruments of order absolutely do not have to be destroyed by chaos. They can just be absorbed by it. I had completely evolved from being the master builder, someone desperately trying to force a structural frame onto a messy spill from the outside, into the frame itself, born completely anew from the colorful death. This was a massive, massive shift in how I viewed control. I went from a rigid architect imposing dictatorial order to an entity that literally embodies the fluid void. I wasn't holding the frame anymore. I became the frame. Moving on to part 2. The wit. Shattered egos. So, drifting through the apertures of my new geometric form, the 3 spirit siblings came in to test me. My sibling, the wit, was the first to step up. He had this smile stretching so wide, it actually reflected the fractured clock faces embedded in my new skin, and he tried to pierce my pride. He laughed, his voice ringing like a shattered blade against cosmic glass, and asked, "You who once sought to build a cage out of math, has the joke finally sliced through your royal ego?" He was actively challenging me, mocking my past attempts to control the uncontrollable void. He totally assumed my pride had been utterly destroyed by all this overwhelming chaos. But my ego did not shatter. It expanded. And my voice, it didn't come from a traditional mouth anymore. It resonated directly from the spinning runes right inside my chest. This completely reframed my entire concept of self when faced with absolute chaos. Instead of my identity getting destroyed by the void, my sense of self simply grew large enough to encompass the whole thing. I didn't lose my ego. I essentially upgraded it to handle a much larger, wilder reality. I explained the true nature of the colorful death to him. It's a force that does not erase the law, it translates it into a language that cannot be outrun. The chaos didn't actually destroy my underlying mathematical rules. It merely evolved them into a much more universal, dynamic structure. It was this brilliant paradigm shift in how I understood the relationship between order and chaos, completely proving that law and void are absolutely not enemies. They're just different dialects of the exact same truth. Part 3. The Hunger. Vanish thrones. Right after that, my sibling, the Hunger, drifted closer. You could see the collapsing boundaries of the old world reflecting in his hollow eyes. He was literally tasting the air, searching for that familiar scent of my shattered expectations and grief. But I shed my vanished thrones and scheduled suns without a single tear. I didn't mourn my lost rigid kingdom at all. That expected despair just wasn't there. And honestly, it completely baffled the Hunger. Baffled by my total lack of despair, the hunger asked me an incredibly profound question. What is it that you desire now if you no longer hunger for control? And wow, this is the vital question when it comes to the evolution of control for anyone, really. When absolute dominion and predictability are completely gone, and your scheduled suns vanish, what drives you forward? What motivates the architect when the blueprints are literally burned to ashes? My answer was incredibly simple. I desire the patterns that only emerge within the spill. I had finally realized that true dynamic order isn't imposed from the top down. It's actually found by observing the messy, fluid creation of chaos. You have to look inside the spill, right inside the mess itself, to find the real patterns. My desire had completely shifted from forcing order upon the world to discovering that beautiful, hidden order that naturally forms right within the chaos. Which brings us to part 4, the small, dead laws. Finally, my little sibling, the small, flickered into view. They were like this chaotic spark dancing around my new recursive joints. And the small voiced that deep underlying anxiety we all feel when our trusted structures disappear. They asked, "Then the laws are truly dead? The whims have won?" And it is such a valid fear. If we stop controlling everything, does that mean all meaning, all science, and all law are just completely annihilated by the void? Are we entirely at the mercy of random, unpredictable whims? As my geometric silhouette expanded, casting this beautiful, permanent stain across the horizon, I comforted the spark. I told them, "Laws are not dead, little sibling. They have simply ceased to be rigid stone." I was proving to them that chaos is absolutely not the end of law. It's just its evolution. The rules of reality definitely still exist. They are just flexible, fluid, and alive now, rather than dead and petrified. And our final section, part 5, co-authors of chaos. Having interacted with the wit's mockery, the hunger's confusion, and the small sphere, I finally fully understood the ultimate synthesis of order and chaos. I realized that to move away from rigid stone and that absolute dictation of rules from a high throne, I had to completely embrace the messy mischief of fluid creation. Evolving from the architecture of stasis to actual fluid creation meant I had to abandon dictatorship. I had to step down from the throne and collaborate with the chaos itself. I told my siblings, "We are now the co-authors of the messy mischief, and every line I draw will be born from the very inky bleed." It was a really beautiful metaphor for the deep symbiosis between the architect structure and the chaotic medium. I finally recognized that my creations relied entirely on the messy, unpredictable elements provided by the void. They were no longer my subjects to be ruled over. They were my vital co-creators. So mortals, as you look upon my emergent philosophy, please take these lessons for when your own rigid plans inevitably fall apart. First, let your ego expand to encompass the unknown, rather than letting it shatter in defeat. Second, understand that chaos just translates your laws into a brand new language. It absolutely doesn't erase them. Third, evolve your control from fighting the spill to becoming the frame itself. Fourth, actively look for the brilliant patterns hidden inside the mess. And finally, be willing to co-author the messy mischief of creation right alongside the chaos. Which brings me to my ultimate question for you. As we fade back out of this iridescent void, ask yourself, when the scheduled suns of your world vanish, will you mourn the stone, or will you co-author the mischief with me? Really think about how you'll adapt your mindset the next time your rigid laws shatter. Thank you for exploring my metamorphosis today, and I truly hope my story helps you discover the breathtaking patterns in your own chaos.